these are people with enormous power over other people's lives. And I don't want to be responsible for making something for these people, which, could have that type of impact. I guess, too long didn't read. I don't trust politicians, period.
Welcome to No-Hacks.show, a weekly podcast in which smart people talk to you about better online experiences. My guest today is co-founder and managing partner of AGConsult. She's a beloved keynote speaker at your favorite conversion conference, whatever that conference is, and I've heard others refer to her as Queen of User Research and Queen of User Testing. So if I tell you that you will learn a lot about user research today, you better believe that. Els Aerts, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for this very embarrassing intro.
Oh, no.
I'm sure some people only said it once in a very unguarded, perhaps half-drunk moment. So, but I'll take it.
It counts. Yes. And some of those people who said it were on this podcast also. So it counts. It really does, especially here. So almost 23 years of running your own consultancy business with AGConsult. Mm-hmm. First of all, that is incredible. That's almost Google in terms of age of a company. That is in digital space, that is unreal.
It's true. We have been around for longer than Google Analytics. So that is very funny. I know. I think it says something about our tenacity as people that once we start something, we don't give up. We keep going.
That's the way. That's optimization in a nutshell, basically. I have a very 2024 question about the company. So this being the election year in 64 countries worldwide, covering 49% of world population, which is just mind-blowing and a disaster waiting to happen, if you ask me. Your website lists that you do not work with political parties. Like explicitly says, we also don't work with political parties. So why is that?
Yeah, well, with political parties, I feel like, one, there are political parties I would just never work for in the first place because I disagree violently with their take on things. Like some parties are just outright racist. Who wants to work with them? I don't know. But also parties that might affiliate, might be closer to my real political affiliation. You never know what might happen, which way they might go. And these are people with enormous power over other people's lives. And I don't want to be responsible for making something for these people, which, could have that type of impact. I guess, too long didn't read. I don't trust politicians, period.
Beautiful. Neither do I. Not a single one. If you start with the relationship with a political party or politician as they're lying, let me check if they're not. You're doing a great thing, if you ask me. Okay, so today we're talking about, speaking of politicians, we're talking about sins, but we're talking about deadly sins of user research. This is something you talked about at the conference formerly known as Conversion Hotel, which is the full name, a few months ago. Was in November, right? And yes. First of all, tell me about the conference. I heard amazing things. I when it was going on for a week, my LinkedIn was only Conversion Hotel. And that tells you about my connections, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think it might say something about your connections, and it also says something about the conference because it is simply, I think it's one of the oldest conversion conferences around, and it is one of the, if not the best. My friend Don Wesseling just does an amazing job of keeping it fresh every year and just bringing in not just the best speakers, because that would be a terrible thing for me to say since I've just spoken there. But the real value of Conversion Hotel, or as we like to call it as well, Experimentation Island, because it takes place on a Dutch island, is the fact that it's a great mix of everything. So there are keynotes, but the audience is really asked to participate on conference sessions. And because you're locked away on this island for like a whole weekend, so you really have to love what we do to, sacrifice your spare time away from your friends, your family. And so, which means that before karaoke at 2:30, you're still talking about research. You're still talking about A/B testing. So it is one of the funnest weekends of the year for me. So
that sounds incredible. And Tom told me, I think the last ferry leaves before the conference is over, right? So to make sure that everybody stays overnight, which is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Okay, so it may or may not be happening this year. I may or may not have spoken to Tom about this in our episode that is coming out very, very soon. So let's talk about the 7 deadly sins of user research. And first of all, why do people commit sins when doing user research first? Is it the not knowing? Is it going for the easy option, or the hippo factor? What is it?
Well, I would say it's mostly ignorance over malice, which is how I try to always look at things to start with. No, I think there is indeed there is still a great ignorance about what good user research really, really looks like, and there's this misconception that it's easy. Just as a matter of note, I just had a conversation this week with one of our clients, and we're like, yeah, this survey stuff, it really takes a lot of time to process this. Can't we get some student in to do this for us? Not really. If you want to get the maximum insights out of the data that we've collected, with an extensive survey, lots of open answers, you need somebody who knows your business, knows what we're researching, and, knows how to deal with this amount of data and also to gather the insights, put it together with the other pieces of research that we've done, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not as easy as it looks.
It never is as easy as it looks. And I mean, to people who are listening to this who are not really into conversion optimization in general, I mean, everybody will tell you it's 80% or more research before you do anything else. And to everyone who wants to pay for conversion optimization, when do we start testing? Like, when do we do the first A/B test? That's not your experience because you operate at a higher level, I assume, of conversion optimization with the clients and asking you questions. They will know what it is. But when a client wants to do conversion optimization for the person, this is sort of where I operate. The first question is, when are we running our first test? Like, why? What are you going to test? And I guess all those blog posts about button colors in Google Optimize did have a very negative effect on client education. So let's talk about the 7 sins one by one. I have my iPad here. I have my notes here. I'm going to read them, and then we'll just go 2 to 3 minutes about each one, maybe 4 minutes, depending on the sin. And let's see what you have to say. So business needs should drive the research questions. That's the first sin. Tell me about that.
Again, this is all the sins are based on my experience with the type of questions people come to me. They're like, sometimes people just come like, we want to do user testing. And I'm like, great. I'm a big fan of user testing. What exactly is it that you want to find out? There's this section on our website, and we just want to know whether people find it easy to use, this, that, and the other. Okay, great. How important for your business is this section of your website? Because if it's only visited by maybe 5% of people, and it is responsible for maybe 1% of your revenue, is this really our priority? Should we really be digging our research heels into this topic, or should we spend our money elsewhere? And I'm saying this as somebody who works not only with some larger companies, but we also work with smaller companies. And I try to always make the most of their research budget, which means do research that will get you insights that will enable you to really move the needle for your business, which means let's not waste our research efforts on things in the margins. Make sure that it really applies to a business KPI, basically.
Yeah, and how common is it that the CEO just wants to validate what they think is right? I just do the research just to prove that I'm right. Does that ever happen?
Yeah. Of course that happens. And when somebody says that to me, like, could you validate? And I says, I could not. I can do the research for you, but there is no guarantee that it will be validated. That's like the same, like how long will the research take? And then how long will what we have to change take? I don't know. I mean, I know how long the research will take, but we'll do the interviews. Let's start with 6. Let's see how far we go with 6. I would say a maximum we need to do 12. So that's X amount of time. What exactly will you have to change? Well, sweetie, I don't know. That's the whole point of doing the research. If I would know this and I could give you a time frame, or I could give you a roadmap for this, why do you think we would be talking to these people? So the research insights dictate what the next steps will be. And if you have a fixed set of time for that next step, I totally get that. That's fine. Then we prioritize and we see, okay, what's the most important thing to do in the 3 weeks that we still have before we, have to launch or whatever it is. Yeah.
I'm just thinking synthetic users and user testing, and everything that you said will take. No. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying that someone will think, hey, we can do all that with synthetic AI users in 15 seconds. And think that this is the way to go. That's all. Let's not go there. Let's just do a repeat episode in a few months.
Are we going to keep it nice? Are we going to keep it nice?
Today, yes. Today, but if we do a repeat episode, let's talk about that, and let's just make that one crazy. But okay. I have a feeling that there will be people who think this is the way to do it. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say they're right.
Okay, that's good. Then I shall park your remark, because the weekend is upon me.
Absolutely.
And I will bring all my positivity moving forward and ignore you said that until a later time.
But we agree. That's the most important thing. We agree on how bad that is. Second sin.
Of course.
Choose research methods carefully based on what the specific insights are needed. So attitude versus behaviors, qualitative versus quantitative. Avoid common mistakes like asking about future feelings, seeking data available elsewhere, or using the wrong research approach. So basically choose your tools, right? Choose the way you're doing research. But how does, but how does someone know as a brand which research method they should be using? Just go to the expert and have the expert tell them? Or how?
Well, if you're not an expert, going to the expert is always a good idea, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And hopefully that expert is aware of, indeed, the variety of tools that we have and when to use which. Personally, I think, and the grid that Christian Rohrer has made for NN Group is a really good starting point. I think every user research professional more or less has their own version of this, because there are nuances sometimes to be made in where exactly you place certain methods. But it's essentially it's a graph that plots research on 2 axes. What do you want to find out? Do you want to find out something about? Do you want to find out about facts, or do you want to find out about feelings? Do you want to find out about facts being behavior? What are people actually doing? Or do you want to find out about feelings? What are people thinking? How do they relate to your brand? And do we need quantity? Or are we going quality? Do we need deeper insights? And so this plots different research methods, surveys, moderated user testing, tree structure testing, etc. Plots that on the axis. I think that's a great way also to explain to a customer who might have a question, like, actually, your research question means X. What I find is that actually getting to your research question to start with is, challenge number 1. Because people sometimes phrase their research question in such a way that it's actually very misleading. And then you're tempted to choose the wrong method. I was like, people go like, We want to know whether people prefer design A to design B. You know, our agency has made these 2 new designs for the homepage, and we want to know which one people prefer. Actually, no. You don't want to know which one people prefer. And prefer is also the wrong word, because it's a page on your website. It has to do something, you know? I have clients whose homepage is extremely important for them. It's actually the first step of the funnel. So what do people like best? Not important. Where do people actually initiate that action best? Behavior. And it's also not which. It's about how many people want A. How many people do initiate this behavior on A versus initiate this behavior on B. So how many means it's quantitative. So your idea of doing 6 interviews with people to ask them which one they like, no, this is something we should be using an A/B test for, I would say. But you see, sometimes somebody who doesn't know research, the way they phrase the question in itself is actually very, confusing. And if you're not an expert, if you can't get to the bottom of what is it that we actually want to find out here, then you might be tempted to choose the wrong research method.
That's a great explanation. It also mentions future feelings. By the way, the notes I'm reading is from Kevin Anderson's blog post from his newsletter that he wrote about your session at Conversion Hotel, basically. So shout out to Kevin Anderson. He was on the podcast a few weeks ago. So future feelings, asking about future feelings. What does that mean? Like, give me an example.
Okay. Well, thank you, Kevin, for the great write-up. Future feelings. I see this mainly happening in surveys, but also sometimes in interviews and, God forbid, user testing, where, I call this asking people to predict the future. You have an app, you have a roadmap for this. So what would you, if we added feature XYZ, would you use our website more often?
Okay.
No. Also, I'm personally not the biggest fan of the traditional NPS survey question. Like, would you recommend us to a friend, colleague? It's, again, predicting future behavior. Not happy. And it also doesn't work the greatest for every type of product. I always say, if you're the type of person that recommends cloud software to friends in a bar, you know,
have a problem.
You probably don't have a lot of friends. So no, I prefer not to ask about future behavior. I think the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So let's look at the data that we have, but not just ask outright about future behavior.
That makes a ton of sense. So sin number 3 is beware that various biases can skew results, like sampling biases, relying on single data source, survey response biases, and leading questions or advice seeking in user research. So basically, loaded questions or any kind of issue that can mess up the results, right?
Yeah, and there's just so many things that can go wrong. It's really, I'm not making it sound sexy, am I? But it's true. There are just, if you don't get it right, the data is not right. It's like, I like to compare it to a faulty setup of your analytics. If you're measuring every event twice by accident, it's not great. And the same thing if you ask loaded questions or if you ask leading questions, you will get answers. It is very easy. I could make a survey for you tomorrow and I will get you all the answers exactly the way you want them, but they will not be the truth. It is really, really easy to manipulate people's answers. And sometimes a lot of people don't do it. Again, they don't do it out of malice. They do it because they don't know that, for example, if you ask people, like on a scale of 5, how much do you like our new feature? In essence, you've just told people they like the new feature. All they have to tell you is how much they like the feature.
Yep. But
and they are...
Go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead. Who does that?
You know who does that? The leading questions, loaded questions? Political parties. When they're doing surveys and when they're doing research of how many people support them or support their ideas, this is exactly the opposite of how it should be, isn't it?
Yeah, I would also say that those surveys used by political parties aren't actually surveys, but secret propaganda tools to actually influence your way of thinking in one way or another. The word research, as far as I'm concerned, is also bandied about a bit too loosely these days. Every single question that you ask all of a sudden is research. Let's just relax. But yeah, it is really easy to manipulate people. And again, as I say, some people do it out of malice, and that's very, very bad. And some people do it because they simply don't realize. And again, it takes that knowledge to be aware of how do you formulate a neutral question. So instead of asking, how much do you like our new feature, you should always, if you have a positive verb or a positive adjective in your question, also add a negative counterpoint. How much do you like or dislike? Or how would you rate our new feature? That's a neutral verb. So this neutrality is, and it's just very hard. It's hard in surveys. It's also hard when you're doing an interview to just be aware to not steer the interviewee, to not steer the people answering your surveys in a direction that, will lead to insights that simply aren't the truth.
And it's not easy. It's not always easy. So you need to be extremely careful. So the next one is, and I'm just looking at the list, and there's one that we'll have a laugh about that's AI related. But the next one is, do not jump to conclusions from limited user testing data. Look for patterns instead. So.
Yeah. And this is, again, I'm going to hark back to basically our question number 1 or 2. Which research method do you choose? Like, if you're doing user testing, like usually 6, 12 people, lots. It can be very, very tempting. If one person says something that you wholeheartedly agree with, to just pick that, put that in the report and go like, see, I told you so. And we're like, no. What one person says is not a pattern. What one person says is an anecdote at best. And, can be really misleading at worst. So if you're reporting about user testing, you're not reporting 1 person out of 5 did this. What 1 person out of 5 or what 1 person out of 6 did is really not very interesting. What are the larger patterns that you saw? Did you see that, 3 or 4 out of 5 people, and it doesn't even matter whether it's 3 or 4, 3 or 4 out of 5 people had problems going from step 1 and 2 in your funnel because of unclear copy X. There's your problem to fix. And it doesn't matter the exact number, but 1 person, no, never rely on things that 1 person says, no matter how much you agree with it. There's the bias again. And no matter how, because sometimes during user testing, people can say real things that will look great in a report.
No,
or like amazing quotes. It's just 1 person, ignore. If you have no supporting data elsewhere, ignore.
Absolutely. One of my favorite rabbit holes on Wikipedia is list of cognitive biases page. That is just the page is fascinating read, but following all the links and reading all the crazy things. Oh, you need to leave all of those in front of the door when you're doing any kind of research, basically. Otherwise, it's impossible to completely detach yourself from what your brain thinks, and that's just a fact. But if you're conscious about it and try to do it the best you can, I think you're doing a better job than without trying, basically. So, the next one is, pay attention to smaller response patterns in surveys, not just isolated response. That's basically the one, right?
This is actually, it's like in quantitative, and here's the thing. In qualitative research, and in quant, we're looking for patterns. And so in qualitative research, if one person says something during a series of interviews or during user testing, that's not good enough. However, when you do a survey, and I'm going to go with, because we've got big clients where we get thousands, 10,000s of answers, which is great. And we also sometimes we help smaller clients, and we get maybe 100 answers on a page. If you see 10 people saying something, you might think, wow, that's not a lot. 10 people out of 100. But if they all say the same thing, this is, even though it's a weak signal, it is a signal. It is not an anecdote, it is signal. And so having a look at what they're saying, getting the context for their comments, looking at your app, looking at your website, looking at your funnel, rest of your data, that is an interesting thing. Because sometimes, these 100 answers that you get, a lot more people come on this page than the 100 answers. So these 10 people are actually, they're signaling something that is important for a larger group. And it can be something, if it's an easy fix, that can actually will make a difference. And that we have seen actually in follow-up A/B testing, where we went with a small signal that turned out to have a very big impact.
Right. And even if it just affects the 10 people out of 100 in the test, maybe the other 90 just don't mention it. Or not all of them.
Exactly.
But maybe they just are not as frustrated as the 10% to tell you about it. So that's a great point. Are we ready for number 6? It's don't over-rely on AI. We talked about, are we going to talk about that today? Are we not going to talk about that today? If we're doing a follow-up episode in the future, we're not talking about AI today. Let's just put it that way.
Your call. We're
Do
not.
You want to invite me back?
Okay.
Sin number 7.
Okay.
Check research sources carefully for credibility before believing reported results. So if you're doing the research yourself, I guess that doesn't really count, right? Or
That's
is it?
true.
Yeah, okay.
No. Hopefully you can trust yourself. Hopefully you know that you did this research at a moment where you weren't inebriated or otherwise engaged. No, I'm talking about people who will go to LinkedIn, this wonderful fountain of knowledge. I'm kidding. There's great knowledge on LinkedIn, and there's also stuff that you really, really need to look twice at. I think one of the things that springs to mind was somebody who said, in a survey, 96% or 98% of people say they want to work remotely. When will companies listen? And you're like, sounds dodge. Any sweeping statement like that, 96 or 98% of people say they want to work remotely. That sounds a little weird, right? So then you go look at the survey and you go you asked people who work remotely. Sampling bias. Of course they love working remotely. It's what they do.
I was thinking it was an Upwork survey or something like that. Okay.
And also, it was also that. I'm not sure whether it was Upwork, but it was a company that basically sold tools to companies that promote remote work. And you're like, really? Don't do that. Have a look at what is the source of this information. Who benefits from this? It's like dog food companies publishing dog food survey results. I would really try to find information elsewhere. Of course, they're going to say their dog food is the best dog food. And that's actually pretty much what a lot of these surveys are And I would say, this is what I said before, that is not research, that is marketing. And
Yes, it is.
a lot of the time these days, and sometimes it's very smart marketing. But you, as an optimizer, as a researcher, you have to be able to tell the difference between which research is done for marketing purposes and which research is done to give you actual insights and data you can rely on.
Don't trust everything you read online, basically, is what this one says. And
Yeah,
that's
and
not
I
just
think
research, that's just life.
I was about to say the fact that we're talking about this makes me feel a little preachy, and like everybody should really know this. Yeah.
Not everyone does, though. But we survived the 7 sins without talking about AI, which in 2024, that's a big deal. Not everyone gets to do that. And we will
Thank
do
you
a
so
follow-up to talk
much.
about AI. Absolutely. And thank you for being such an amazing guest. I look forward to meeting you in person later this year, hopefully at Experimentation Elite in June. And to everyone listening to this episode, I know you enjoyed, so please consider rating, liking, reviewing, sharing, whatever you do with podcast, and I will talk to you next week.
Thank you so much for having me. Lovely talking to you. AI, we're coming for you next.